thrilled to have the opportunity to be here today to talk about the strategies that I've used. And I think, as we've heard today, so many amazing things came out during this day. And, as they said, all sizes, don't fit everybody. But I think that we've heard some things that will be really helpful. So I hope that as we go through our short time this afternoon, I'll be able to provide at least one or two strategies for you that you may be able to use with your loved one or with the folks that you work with on a daily basis. So one of the things I always start with is to talk about the title of the book that we heard, the Being My Mom's Mom, and how that came about, just to sort of give you an idea about my mom and how cool she is. When we first started to switch roles, I guess, I still wanted her to be as independent as possible. And I don't think that, how many changes, a person's personality goes through when dementia, rolls into your life. So prior to dementia, I don't believe my mother had ever been to a McDonald's. You believe that? She never had, and now it's our favorite place to be. So we're in the line at McDonald's, and as I said, I really want her to be as independent as possible, so I still try to let her order what it is she'd like. So she stands in front of the cashier, and she says, "I'd like an apple pie, please." So the cashier looks at me as if for permission, and I say, "You can have apple pie, but you have to eat all your lunch first." So the cashier bursts out laughing, and my mother looks right at her and says, "I used to be her mom, and now she's mine." So there you have that. And I think it was like, she is just the coolest thing, ever. But I think all of us in here who have dealt with this disease, it doesn't matter for how long, we all remember where we were when we heard those words, "You are in the beginning stages of dementia." I remember that day like it was yesterday, even though it was 2006. We were already holding hands, and as the doctor looked across the table and said that, if you've talked to me at all over here at the book table here, and you interacted with me at all, you probably have, figured out I'm a really, really positive person. So when the doctor looks over and says dementia, my mother looks back at me and she says, "That's bad, isn't it?" So I'm trying to think of something really positive to say. What do you say to that? So I say, there are worse things, to which she says that. Other than dying, what is worse than not being able to remember anything or anyone? So how do you answer that question? If you talk to me at all today, you know that I don't have any problem finding words. I can talk a lot. However, I could not come up with anything wonderful to say to her question. So, we were holding hands anyway, so I squeezed her hand a little harder, and I said, "I have no idea what the future holds for us. What I can tell you is, whatever happens, we are going to do this together." And I think my mother was, she was 77 years old at the time she was diagnosed. And, you might be thinking to yourself, well, 77, that's not too bad. She had a good life, and, 77, that's okay. But we were so woefully unprepared for this diagnosis, I'm sure like many of you. But like the elder care attorney was talking about today, some of us are just woefully unprepared. And my first thought, I'm going to be 1,000% honest with you, my first thought when the doctor said dementia was, oh my God, my mother's going to outlive my money. And that is why I wrote the book. Let's just be right up front. I wrote the book so I could pay for care for my mama. How you like that? Because I am not going to, what's going to happen to this woman? I really think that. So let me tell you why I think that. So at 77, you might be thinking, well, she might not live that much longer. Here's the issue in our family. You're going to meet all the family before we leave here today. So we're going to do the fast forward through Loretta's life. Here we go. So the reason why I was so woefully unprepared for this diagnosis is the issue with that woman on the right. That's my great-grandma Lou Ray. That was her 100th birthday party, so she wearing a little bib. What do you think she wanted for her 100th birthday? 10 more years. She almost got that. So since we're short on time, I'll just tell you, she wanted a man. That's a whole lot more info than you want to know about your grandma, isn't it? You know, and at her party, she's doing her hair, and we're just like, Grandma, what are you doing, sweetie? She said, well, you know, Reverend so-and-so's wife died a few years ago. You know, I like him young. She 95, you know, he was 95. So I'm telling you, but there's hope for all of us who want to live that long. But here's why I'm telling you that story. I'm telling you that story because I was so woefully unprepared, because at 100, my great-grandma still lived by herself, cooked every day. She could go around this room, name each of you, how many kids you had, where you went to college, everything important about you. Finally, at 101, we forced her, literally, to move into an assisted living place. She lived to be 107 years old. At 106, she could still go around this room, name all y'all. You might have been married to somebody else by then. She knew their name too. You're kind of like, oh my God. So now you get my fear. 77. Now, I'm bad in math, but I can tell you there's a long way between 77 and 100. I think my mama's going to live a long time. There is not one thing wrong with this woman except that. No high blood pressure, no diabetes, all the things over here on this wonderful table that they prepare us for. She don't have any of that stuff. Not one thing. Not even arthritis to speak of. So mama going to live a long time. She just turned 89, so this is year 11 for us. And so that's why the little slide says, have some family meetings. Talk to each other about where you want to be when you get older, because that prevents us as kids from having to decide where to put you. The only thing I knew about my mom, about where she wanted to live, her later wishes, was that she did not want to live with her kids. And I don't know why, we're such fabulous individuals. But in all seriousness, my mother made us sign a document that said we would not force her to live with us when she got older. So now, again, you get my drift about, see, I'm not that. That is a true story. And so, again, my dilemma at 77 with this disease, how fast would it progress and how much money was I really going to need? And that's the issue. So I told everybody, I don't care how old you are, have those family meetings. I was so complacent because, you know, really in the back of my mind when the doctor says dementia, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, you're not going to live by yourself till you're 100? That's what I was thinking. So scary. So thus began this journey. So what I'm going to talk to you about just briefly are the, probably the greatest lessons that I've learned over these 11 years. And the first thing, I speak at a lot of churches about forgiveness. Because one of the things that we don't talk about all that often is how we began to be a caregiver in the first place. A lot of us do this professionally, but a lot of us family members, Lon talked about guilt this morning. And one of the reasons why guilt becomes such a factor sometimes is sometimes you didn't volunteer to be you were the only one who could do it. So a lot of times there's some guilt and some anger and all that. So I'll tell you our short story with this. So the first lesson I learned was that forgiveness is mandatory when you are dealing with this disease. So first thing, see that picture on the left? That's my parents' wedding photo in 1949. Now, my mother had told us that there were no pictures of their wedding, but as you can see, there's at least one, and it's right there. I don't know what the big secret was, but there you have it. Now, guess who that is in the middle? 1959. Woo! Wasn't that cute? So I had one of those really unusual births. I was accidentally born at home because I think by the time I was born, my mother had forgotten what labor was like. By the time she realized she was not having indigestion, but was instead in labor, I was out. So the only two people there were my mom and my dad. How cool is that to be delivered by your dad? That's pretty cool. I was also, I don't know if this is what's trying to happen now, but I was also born in a blizzard. So you couldn't get out to the hospital and all that. So the doctor says, just count all her fingers and toes and make sure everything's there. And it was. So cool. So when the blizzard was over, my father went to the store to get bread and milk or whatever it is you get when the blizzard was over, except he did not return. So I spent almost my entire life searching for my father. So one of the things we didn't hear in the introduction is that not only do I work every day, I work for the Department of Homeland Security. And so I got into that field because of my interest in finding my dad and all that. So basically we never met. Now look at that last picture there. That's my mom and Aunt Franny. How many of you here have family secrets? Okay, yep. So that woman there, Aunt Franny, was the keeper of all secrets. And in 2011, she thought she was dying. So she told me the family secret that It was my mother who kept us from having a relationship with my father. So I'm going to let that sink in for a second. And wow, I'm thinking to myself, really? And my mother watched me all these years search for this man everywhere throughout the United States and didn't say a word. So I remember falling on the floor, rolling around, kicking, screaming, crying, all that stuff. And then I got up. I did that for about 20 minutes. And I got up because I had to get off the floor, because regardless of how devastated, destroyed, whatever those adjectives are you want to throw in there, how upset I was, I had to get up off that floor and still take care of my mother, because I am all she has. So when I speak at churches, I say, oh my God, how did you do the whole forgiveness thing? And, don't you want to know all the things? Well, sure I want to know. But by 2011, my mother couldn't have a conversation about anything. She barely knew who I was by then. So, I had to let that go. People ask me a lot, would you rather have not known the family secret? Maybe. But the fact of the matter is I'm stuck with it, so we just move on. So I had to, let that go. And I think that is one of the things. So how I have looked at this is, the minute that guy said dementia, that became the first day of the rest of our lives, basically. Everything else just kind of goes out the window. You just start over. And that's how it played for me. So the second lesson, I think, is that, you just learn to deal with a lot of the challenges. Now, there have been some wonderful things here today explained to us about how, we can use some of these terrific things out here to help with a lot of challenges. And one of the things I have to say right off the bat is that, the Alzheimer's Association has helped me do a zillion things, and for that I am eternally grateful. So, but I was a little slow to pick up on, some of the things that it should have been obvious. And so that first picture there on the left, that's my mama doing Tai Chi in 2007, like about 9 months or so after she was diagnosed. And I do what a lot of people do with this disease, that is, they start to ignore all the little things that happen, even though we should investigate. So my mom never, ever missed Tai Chi. If you would call her, she had Tai Chi on like Tuesday and Thursday. So if you would call her and say, hey, Mom, you want to go to breakfast or lunch? Oh, no, it's Tai Chi day. Okay, well, sweetie, Tai Chi's not till 2:30. We have plenty of time to enjoy. There may be traffic. Okay, so she never did anything on Tai Chi day. So on Tuesday, I called her from work. I said, hey, how was Tai Chi? Dead silence. Then she says, oh, I must have been so busy I forgot to go. That's clue number one for Loretta. And if Loretta had been a planning person, she would not have ignored that, but just started to look at, wow, if she forgets something this significant, we need to do something. But I didn't do that. I do remember calling my sister and saying, hey, Mom missed Tai Chi today. My sister said, what was she doing? I said, I have no idea. But again, we didn't do anything. So go to that middle picture, and I'll show you the first lesson I learned from the Alzheimer's Association. So in the middle, you met Franny, the secret keeper. She's on the left. My mom's in the middle. She's the oldest. And on the right is my Aunt Diane. If we had any plan at all for caregiving for my Aunt Franny and my mom, we thought it would be Aunt Diane. She could help us with stuff. There was 19 years between my mom and Aunt Diane. I don't know what my grandparents were thinking, but there she is. So, but that plan didn't work well at all, because at age 59, Diane got colon cancer and died. So I'm thinking, this is like dwindling. Who's going to help with all these people? This was scary. And here's one of the first lessons I learned from the Alzheimer's Association. When Diane died, my mother could not process that. Her thing was, I'm the oldest, I'm supposed to die first. I had no answer for that. So she had what I learned from the Alzheimer's Association was a stepwise decline. That is where you go along for a while and things are hunky-dory, then some traumatic thing happens and you take this huge dive. And then you go along for a while again and something else traumatic happens and you go down again. My mother's decline was so steep after Diane died that by the time we had the funeral a week or so later, she did not recognize people that they had grown up with. And they were just devastated at the funeral. My mother never recovered from that. So the last piece, and sometimes there is a beauty in this disease, and that's my sister in that last picture on the right. That was her 61st birthday, and we had those stupid little hats on because we knew that it was going to be my sister's last birthday. My sister had MS, and when you get MS in your 50s, typically you get something called progressive, and it goes very quickly. So the beauty of this was when by the time my sister got really sick in 2011, my mother had forgotten she had 2 kids. So when my sister died, I chose not to tell my mother. So usually when I go to churches, and people say, "Oh my God, what you mean you didn't tell your mother your sister died?" Well, what's she supposed to do with that information? That would be the one thing that she would remember, and then she would cry all the time. So that's where that little lie comes in. So people say, "Well, if she asks about your sister, what you gonna say?" Well, I'm gonna cross that bridge when I get to it, and it never came. My sister died in 2011. She has not once ever asked about her. Interestingly, too, because in her room we have a little dresser and all these pictures of us, and she'll look at the pictures, and she'll say, "I look good in these pictures. Who are the rest of these people? Don't mind us, sweetie. It's just your children. Don't mind us." "I look good. Who are the rest of these people?" Okay. We just kind of go with it. But yeah, I mean, my niece has 2 kids now. It's crazy, but she just have blocked, all of those things out. So, these are some of the most challenging things, and, you just kind of deal with it. But one of the things I love, again, from the Alzheimer's Association that I had gotten years ago, because I think the first, you weren't looking at me, but I had my little hand raised when you said, "How many people have ever called us?" I wanted to jump out my seat, me. Because that first 24 hours, I was like, "Tell me everything right now on this phone call." And she was like, "Well, ask some specific questions." "No, tell me everything." But I learned to deal with a lot of these behavioral challenges. So one of the greatest lessons, if I can pass on anything to you, it would be, I have tried to ensure that I give my mom the best of everything while living in her world. Because I think we get so confused sometimes. We still try to, we have a hard time accepting this disease. So we have a tendency sometimes to continue to force them to live in our world instead of, putting ourselves in theirs. So that's one of the greatest changes I was able to make. So I'm not going to go into, we're short on time, I'm not going to go into a lot of those things, but I'll just give you a couple of examples. I still take her out all the time. My mother can walk with the best of them. I bet if we were out in the parking lot and it wasn't raining, she could go around a couple times and still not be tired. So I still take her out all the time. What I try not to do anymore, though, is take her to places where, she's unfamiliar, because that is very difficult for her to do. And the thing next to that talks about loud noises, you do not want to be with my mother when she's a little exasperated. Try standing in the middle of Walmart with all the carts crashing together, people making announcements on the PA system. All of a sudden, my mom will stand in the aisle and cover her ears and say, "It's too loud." That's the fastest way to clear aisle in Walmart. People are like, "Oh my goodness, what's happening there?" So here's the thing. We still go to Walmart, don't get me wrong, we do. We just go at 7 a.m. now. She can have the aisle all to herself. So she still gets the pleasure of going down the aisle with her cart, picking up things and putting it in the cart without people staring or whatever, because sometimes she talks and, kind of murmurs or hums and all that. She doesn't upset other people. They don't upset her. And I think that's cool. The other thing we really had to do was start new family traditions. How many of you have family traditions? When we survive the holidays every year. Now, when the person with dementia is unhappy, who else is unhappy? Everybody's unhappy. So one of the things we had to do, my husband had 8 siblings. They only knew 1 volume, extra loud. My mother hated being at our house for Thanksgiving with all of them. I don't blame her. I hated them too, but okay. And the whole thing was just miserable. They would talk and laugh, and my mom would just cover her ears and stuff. Finally, we would get sick of all that, and then, we'd end up taking her home. But everybody was upset by the end of that. So here's what we started doing for Thanksgiving. We decided to have 2 Thanksgivings. So in the morning, we had Thanksgiving breakfast. So go with me here. Biscuit, some turkey in the middle, little cranberry sauce on top. That's the bomb. So we did that, and it was just a small crowd. Me, my husband, my daughter, granddaughter. That's my mother's limit, 5 people, including herself. That's the limit. So we would have our nice little time for a couple hours. We'd laugh and talk. We might play some games and things like that. And then, 11 o'clock or so, she'd be, ready to go. So she'd say, "Are the loud people coming now?" "Yes." And she'd get her coat and move a little faster toward the exit. So she would make sure she was gone before the loud people showed up. So here's how that worked. Was that extra work? Yes. Was everybody happy? Yes. When the loud people came, that could be louder than normal because my mother was gone by then. So everybody was happy. So I think a lot of times we have to let go, and no matter how hard it was the hardest thing to let go of some of the traditions that we had in our family for 20 plus years. But it was worth it to accommodate my mother and how she felt. Because we don't know what that's like for her, being surrounded by all these people that she doesn't know that well or that she doesn't like. And so that was cool. And so I think that's how I've tried to deal with a lot of the behavioral changes. And one of the things I say in the book is my mother's a different person every day. You just got to figure out who she is and then go with that. And I think that's how I survive. So let's look at a couple of specific challenges. How many of you have ever been accused of stealing something? You took my coat, my keys, you slept with the man next door. Yeah, all that. So, I tried to come up with a couple of little strategies. I'll show you the two that work for us. And if you can't read that, the first thing says, don't argue with them. Can you ever win an argument with somebody with dementia? Lord, no. Yeah, please take a picture or anything. Do whatever you want to do. This is cool. I'm sorry? Yes, exactly. Oh, my mother. And so one of the things that we have had the greatest success with is duplicating items. My mother's favorite item was her purse. Anyway, that's all she usually wants. You took my purse. I'm like, listen, I'm sick of this. So we went to Salvation Army, Goodwill, all that. We bought every purse known to man, every color, every size, almost like that picture. Because the neurologist, one of the things we learned from her was that it really wasn't about what the purse looked like. It was that it was hers. She wanted to hold it and control. It was about control for her. So it didn't matter different sizes and shapes and colors. Okay, so we get the purses. We then take a photocopy in color of her non-driver's ID, laminated it, and put it in every single one of those purses. So we have purses everywhere, in the closet, under the table, in the car, in the trunk, and so before she can get the rest of the pee out of that purse, you took we would just reach anywhere, reach for a purse. Here's the purse. And she would say, oh. So she would open it up, look at that non-driver's ID and see herself. And she looked down and she says, I'm still in there. Yes, sweetie. You are still in there. And that would be the end of it right there. Wow. My mother does not go from 0 to 100. That woman goes from 0 to 200. So to take her back in that other direction, that was fabulous for us. We did the same thing with keys. We had just done a huge renovation at my church, and we went to the dollar store, bought 12 or so of these, identical key rings, took two or three of the church keys, put on there. Again, same thing. And it was funny because like a couple of months ago, my daughter came to see me for the first time, brought my granddaughter, and before the presentation started, she reached into her purse to get a snack for my granddaughter. And then she comes out with the keys. So, everybody has, a set of my mom's extra keys. And people are like, oh, you paid her to do that. No, we all have these keys everywhere. And so it's cool. But I think one of the, greatest accomplishments we had was lessening the number of those outbursts about you stole, you took, you don't love me. Yeah. So that's how I, kind of dealt with that. And that really was a tremendous, I don't say win for us, but it really was. Now let's see a show of hands. How many of you out there are really patient people? A lot of y'all do this for, Used to be. That's so honest. I'm going to give you a hug when I'm done. It is true. It can be really difficult. Now, I did not write this. There's 6 tips that have been quite successful for us. Came from a gentleman named Omar. I do a lot of work with. He and I have done a lot of training together in Canada, and he wrote this article about building patience. I said, Omar, can I borrow that from my book? He said, sure. So there it is. And I think one of the greatest things I've learned to control really are the triggers. I know exactly what it is that my mom does that upsets me. So when I get to the group home where she lives, right now, I'm fulfilling that dream, and so I have her in the group home about 6 minutes from me. And I pull up in front of the group home, and I'm talking to myself. These are all the things she did yesterday that really upset me. This is how today I am not going to let this upset me. So I talk to myself when people drive by like, why is this girl talking to herself? And, you just have to know my mama. But okay, so the trigger is bigger. Because, all of us know what our triggers are, don't we? And we also know that people push them intentionally at times. And so it's really about controlling that part of us. So that was the first thing. And the positive glasses piece, that was fairly easy for me because I am such a positive person. But I'll tell you where I really got stuck with that attitude thing. And if we think, why is that up here? It was absolutely preventing me from being more patient because I hate this disease with a passion. And I had to learn to let go of that a little bit because I wasn't able to provide, my mom with the, attention and real care that she needed. So I had to let go a little bit of that hatred. And like Lon said this morning, all about that guilt. And I had to really change my attitude to be the best caregiver I could be. And that really helped. Now that fourth one, that's pretty funny. It says visualize yourself facing the problem. I take that to a whole new level. I just visualize the day being over, and that's how it fixes it for me. I just go all past that little problem thing. Let's just end this day. Why don't we do that? And I think, patience really is possible. And I think, just like Lon talked this morning about having that voice inside you, we have to have that. And when you kind of couple that, with your inspirational material, whatever it is that inspires you, it absolutely builds self-confidence. Because some of the guilt that he talked about is really about us second-guessing the decisions that we make. I know I've second-guessed a lot of times, especially about this group home. It's called Mamie's Loving Care, and I'm just lucky that it is all that and then some. But suppose you were in a place that, you weren't really sure if your mama would like that. I don't want to second-guess myself every second. And so all these things have really helped me. So one of the number one answer that I get when I go out, and I've done 300 of these presentations now, and the number one question you get, and you never know who's watching you. When I'm out with my mom, they always ask us, how in the world do you do this? The number one complaint about this disease is the repetition. They say the same thing over and over and over. And so we've done a few strategies that have worked fairly well for us. And the first of it, if you cannot see that picture, the one on the left's a little better. If you're asking yourself, are those Lego bricks in that picture? The answer to that is yes. You can now tell people you actually know a certified Lego instructor. That would be me. So in all seriousness, though, my mother has not known me for about 4.5 years. My 55th birthday was the first time she did not recognize me. The one connection I have to my mother are those Lego bricks. And so when you get the Legos out, away goes that blank stare. Her eyes come alive. She can make eye contact. She just starts putting those little bricks together as fast as her little hands will move. And she always builds the same thing. If you can't see that picture, there are doors and windows. And she always builds the same thing, a house, so she can go home. Now you have that. And you know that Lego makes those little people. They even have some with gray hair. And so I put one and glued it into this one little house. So she always opens the door and looks to see if she's still in there, which is really kind of cool. Really kind of cool. So not only does my mother not repeat when she is playing with the Legos, she doesn't talk at all. And the guy that wanted, not this picture, I took that picture, but the Washington Post came and interviewed us, and they took a zillion pictures. And he said, wow, I cannot believe how focused she is on those Legos. True, nothing else gets her attention like that. And so we have sort of lessened the repetition by keeping her busy. The other great strategy that has really worked for us is keeping a series of pictures on us all the time from 1929 when she was born to 1949, which is about as far as she can go. So I have about 700 pictures on my phone. I'm happy to show you. I also have my iPad tethered to my dashboard. For some reason, this woman has learned how to swipe. So she can be in the car swiping through the pictures. And she's naming all these pictures, people I ain't never heard of. Uncle Buddy, who the hell is Uncle Buddy? But I guess he's real. So good for her. Half these people I don't know. When Aunt Diane died, she was the keeper of all the photos. So I inherited about 1,000 some odd photos from family, and almost all of them are on our iPad or the phone. So because DC traffic is, so crazy, and whenever we are out together and traffic gets bad or she's starting to ramp up a little bit in the car, those pictures take her back to zero in a hurry. And they just make her smile. And so that has been a incredible strategy for us. And so, all of these folks who do these presentations, they all have a signature story. So I'll share mine with you really quickly. And it is the number one question, as I said, I get asked in public, and that is how I learned to deal with my mother's repetition. So years ago, this was years ago now, so years ago, we were in a very crowded supermarket. Don't know what the problem was, but the line was really long. And at that time, I was still allowing my mom to write checks. So, of course, the number one thing you need to know when you're writing a check is the date. So we're in the line. My mom says, "What's today?" I answer, "It's the 17th. So we move up a little bit in the line. So a few seconds later, she asks again, "What's today?" Again, "What's today?" You get the picture. Finally, we get up to the part where you lean on the counter and you're going to write your check. So one last time, my mom asks, "What's today?" And I'm going to answer. But before I can, everybody else in the line yells, "It's the 17th, really loud. So my mom looks at me, she says, "I guess I asked you that before, huh?" Just a few times, sweetie. So we're laughing hysterically, we're high-fiving, and we got our bags, we're leaving the store, and she really does have the best sense of humor because she's laughing harder than me. And then I notice this woman is following us, and she is not laughing. So she comes up behind me, she says, "Excuse me, I need to talk to you." Okay, so I stop. She says, "Listen, I learned so much from you in that line, you have to tell me how you do that." "Do what?" She said, "Do you know how many times your mother asked you to date?" I said, "No." 30 times. You didn't say, "Shut up, don't ask me that no more, I just told you that." Your voice never raised, you never changed your tone. She said, "I need to know how you do that because I'm so mean to my mother." I said, not to be flippant or anything, but here's the thing. She's my mother. She asked me a question, and I answer it. Now, in my head, am I thinking, "Please, God, don't ask me that again"? Of course I am, but I've not said it. And people always often comment, how I multitask. I'm in the line doing what everybody else does. I'm reading the cover on the Inquirer, so, so you're reading, so-and-so had an affair with so-and-so, 17th. So-and-so had a baby by so-and-so, 17th. I could just go with it, and, it just doesn't bother me. But would I prefer she not do that? Yes. And, but it is a practice. So, yes, it gets on my nerves like it does everybody else's, but I'm not going to not take you out because it gets on people's nerves. Just like Monday, I guess it was. I guess Friday, because I was in Ohio. Okay, Friday, I got back from Ohio. And we're in the Dairy Queen line, and, there's a teenager behind us and her mother. And my mother kept saying, "I'm going to get vanilla. I'm going to get vanilla. I'm going to get vanilla." So the little girl finally says, "Why she keep saying that?" Her mother's like, "Shh." These little unruly children. It was cool. And, but it just doesn't really, bother me at all. But that's, you learn to live with that. But, we go out, we do fine. But it is the number one question we get. "My God, you're so good with your mother." Well, she's my mother. Okay. But it's I understand why people want that. How many of you here have sundowning challenges? Woo! How about sundowning with full moon? Woo! That's my next book. Come on. Yeah. So, couple things about that. So I told you about the first time she didn't remember me. I was 55, my birthday party, and somebody had said earlier about taking the loved one or the patient out to get ice cream, because that solves almost every problem. And my mother would eat that all the time. But on my birthday, when she couldn't remember whose birthday it was, she got so frustrated, she threw her cake on the floor. You have no idea how important that is, because if she could eat that every minute, she would. And so, I tried to move past her not remembering me. My mother's name for me is Very Nice Person. And people say, oh my God, that's so terrible. No, because parents of some of my friends, they call them a whole lot of other stuff. So I'm so happy with Very Nice Person. So I'm going to just go with that. What also bothers me that I don't allow people to do is when they say, "Who is this nice young lady here?" And, she doesn't know. You know who that is. She doesn't know. And stop asking her that, because if I'm okay with her not knowing who I am, and I'm a very nice person, you should be okay with her. But don't be trying to force her into this. She doesn't know. And you see right away she wants to cry or whatever because she can't remember. Leave it alone. And I think that's cool. So that's the first piece. And then let me show you this picture. It says, show photos and other reminders. I showed you the picture of all her loved ones, and my mom was in that picture. She was 13 in that picture. But this picture is also important because it shows you a strategy that we came up with to keep all the arguments down. I am not a baker or anything. My daughter made that cake. That's my daughter and granddaughter in that picture. And so my mother will say, I'd like a piece of cake. So, of course, we give her cake. Then she eats the cake. Then she says, I'd like a piece of cake. So you say, you just had cake. And she says, I would know if I had cake. Her little head, we going to go there. Oh, we going to roll our head around. Oh, for real? So people say, well, do you give her another piece of cake? No, because it's like your 2-year-old. We can do that. We can feed stuff to our grandkids because then they go home. It don't matter how the sugar impacts them. But I'm not going to be here with you for the rest of the day with all that sugar rolling around. No. So this is what I started to do. My mother used to take all kinds of photos. So now when we give her desserts of any kind, or really anything, we have a picture of the cake on the plate. We take a picture. Her with the fork in her hand, taking a bite, take a picture. The cake is halfway gone, take a picture. She's finishing the cake, take a picture. So now when she says, I'd like a piece of cake, and then you say, you just had cake. No, I didn't. I reach right for the phone. I show her the picture. She looks at the picture. She looks down. She sees she has the same outfit on as in the picture. So her head's down. She says, well, did I at least like the cake? Yes, sweetie, you loved the cake. Yes, girl, it was good. And for a while, she can't do it now, but for a while, up until a little more than a year ago, if, she finally caught on. So, she's arguing with you, I wanted this, and you don't love me. You used to always feed me them. So we run for the phone, and we get the phone. And then she looks, you got a picture, don't you? Yes, girl, I wanted you. Yes, we have pictures of everything. So she's like, oh. So we win that, and I cannot tell you how many issues that has solved because there is no better arguer than my mama. And so that has been one of the greatest things. That might even be up there with the purses, and it's cool. And I think that, when I speak, again, and particularly at a lot of churches where there are, issues of all sorts, people just can't remember that, this is the disease. This is not the person that you knew. So, when I am in the grocery store and I hear people being mean to their mom or whatever, Mama, why you do that? Or stop saying that, Mama. Okay, if they would. And so when we act like they're doing this on purpose, which they clearly are not. So we have to remember a lot of times, as frustrating as it can be, it's the disease and not them. And I think that's probably, again, some of the greatest lessons that I have learned. Now, if I could change one thing about this 11 years, it would be, of course, that I would have been better prepared not only for this diagnosis, but for the execution of it. So again, AARP, Alzheimer's Association, I read everything I could find. I called 2 or 3 times. I did all of these things to learn everything I needed. I did the whole legal document thing. I just put my house in a trust in my mom's name. And all of these kinds of things to, prepare you. And up at the top right, there's Mom playing with something like, what are those? These are some Lego fidget toys I made for her. I keep this in the car. It has all kinds of Legos in it that twirl and swivel and click and make noise. She can still pick which one she wants to play with. I am a trainer by trade. I do all security and law enforcement training for Homeland Security. And so I have a lot of fidget toys anyway, but I made these because of our Lego connection. So she can still pick the one she wants. There's like 11 or so to choose from, and she's very, very happy in the car. So I keep this in addition to my mom bag, which has Depends and extra clothes, because just because she has an accident maybe, I'm not going to not take her out. So I have something very similar to a diaper bag. I just call it a mom bag, but I always have extra clothes for her so that no matter what happens, we'll still have an enjoyable time. So she has an accident. We go in the bathroom, we change, we move on. And I think that's the preparation piece. Now, there's a guy in that picture with me and my mom. His name is Timothy. I was married to him for almost 31 years. And in July of 2016, about 14 months ago, 15 months ago, Tim died while we were on vacation in New York. And let me say this about Tim. When I say he did everything for my mother, I mean he did everything for my mother. So as you heard in the introduction, I still work every day. Tim was a retired DC cop. So he would go to the group home if my mom had an appointment. He would pick her up. He would drive to the doctor's office. I would leave work. I would meet them at the doctor's office. He would stay till the appointment was over, take her back to the group home. I would go back to work. Translation, I would only be gone from work an hour or two, as opposed to 4 or 5 or the whole day hours. Tim did so much for her that before we could even bury him, I had to buy a new car. Why? Because he had taught my mom to get into this SUV we had. Door opens. She would step on the running board, use the handle, pull herself up, slide in. I had my dream car, this cute little Cadillac, except my mother doesn't know how to sit anymore. So both of us are crying. I'm trying to teach her, turn, sit. No. So I bought this smaller, SUV that we could hit. All of that before I could bury him. Crazy. So I have spent this last 14, 15 months, even coming here. I will admit I'm the spoiled, I was so spoiled on these little trips that, he would drive me, I would just sit and relax, and I would just have to get out and speak. Tim took all the credit cards, Tim did everything. Now Loretta does it all. But I am happy to say I have not showed up at the wrong place yet. So I'm so proud of myself for getting here yesterday. Yeah, I got it like that. So, yeah, but just trying to feel that, not only the love of my life and best friend ever, just to try to, and he worshiped my mother. I was telling somebody earlier that he would have loved it if she would have come live with us, and it would have just been fabulous. He did all the laundry and all the, cooking and all that. People's greatest fear when Tim died was that I would starve to death or never have clean clothes again. But as you can see, I'm not doing too bad. So, but yeah, so, that whole thing, my God, have a plan and a backup plan. I did not have a backup plan for Timothy. I still want one. Or I just wonder about, there are some days I still just wait for him to appear, but, it has not happened. I can hear him talking to me, though, and you're doing a great job. And interestingly, so much about the Alzheimer's Association was in our lives, and we had done so many of these presentations, especially up north and, the Southwest Virginia and all that, that the Alzheimer's Association sent 7 people to his funeral. So we had he was just an amazing guy. Absolutely. And so, thankfully, the beauty and mom they were inseparable, but she has never once asked about him either. So, at least that saved me. We heard a lot today. That was a fabulous presentation about the technology and using it. I got Alexa in there too. But how we use Alexa for my mom, one of the changes she's done the last 4 months or so is that she has stopped watching. My mother's favorite thing were musicals. So I spent a fortune, bought every musical known to man. And then all of a sudden she stopped watching, looking at the TV. Now she's listening. I'm not sure why. So now we have Alexa read to her. So Alexa, read Moby Dick. Alexa starts reading Moby Dick. She'll just sit there. The caregivers can go fold laundry and do all this stuff, and then Alexa stops, she stops. The next day, Alexa, read Moby Dick. She'll start on page 201 and wherever else you left off. It's fabulous. And do I think for 1 minute she's following the story? No, but I can tell you she's mesmerized by that voice. She does not move while Alexa's reading Moby Dick. And so it's cool. But you know what the coolest thing about Alexa is? She does not care how many times you ask the date. Isn't that cool? Girl, you can ask it over and over and over. Gotta love Alexa. That's what I'm talking about. So, yes. Now, one of the things we heard earlier, too, was about long-distance caregiving. One of the great tools you can use is the Fitbit. I know you can't see it. I have mine. You can also get a Fitbit for your loved one, and here's the information you can get from it. If your loved one used to walk 3,000 steps a day, and then, you're looking at the data, and they've gone down to 1,000 steps, or their sleep has decreased from 5 or 6 hours down to 2 hours, that might be a little sign for you. Hey, let me check in, too. Maybe we got some things going on over here. And so that helps a lot of people who are long distance. That thing in the middle there, since mama doesn't claim that, if you ask her, do you have any kids? No. That little wrist bracelet, she's escaped twice from the group home. I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. But the first time she escaped, I put that little wristband on her. You put it on with a tool. You have to take it off with a tool. It does not come off. I lost the tool, so we'll never get it off, but it's okay. So it says I am her kid, whether she claims me or not. It has her name. It has my cell phone number that I am her child, that she's allergic to penicillin, and it has the 800 number that they can call to track her down. So technology has helped me. I use all kinds of apps and caregiving as well, especially post-Timothy. Just not having him, I use a lot of organizers so that I don't go to the wrong place on the wrong day, and all the other kinds of things where I keep up with my schedule, my mom's schedule, and my speaking schedule, which is can be crazy. And so I try to use technology as much as possible. And, we've laughed quite a bit today. You laughed this morning. We had some great stuff this afternoon, which, kind of had us laughing too. But I think humor really is such a great healer for us. And so some of our favorite times, this is Mom's birthday a few weeks ago, February 18th. She turned 89. I want to be like her when I get to be 89. And she's laughing. You can't really tell in that picture, but she's laughing hysterically because we were taking so many pictures. It was me and her best friend, Miss Adams, who does everything with us. And, we're taking all these pictures and celebrating it being 89. Finally, she says, stop taking them pictures and give me cake. So we put the cake down in front of us. She's laughing like, I win, score. And there she is. So she's so excited. And that picture in the middle, we were interviewed by the New York Times as well this past summer, and some of you have seen the article at my table. And the point of the article was how many people, the author, I guess, was of the article is my age. I'm 59, and he was concerned because, and he wrote this series of articles about Medicaid and all that, because he had spent $300,000 of his own money caring for both of his parents who were declining rapidly. And he said, I love my parents, but I would love to have some of my retirement for myself. So he wrote this series of articles about, are we all going to go bankrupt caring for these people, or what happens to us and our money? So I don't know how I ended up in that article, but it is over there. But so when he came, he asked for, my mom can, identify everybody in her yearbook. So he wanted to watch her go through the yearbook, and she's naming all the people in the yearbook. So he gets to this picture, and Mom's in the Spanish club. So even though you can't really tell that there's a person with a dark sweater and the little plaid skirt right in the front row, and you can't see, but she's holding some maracas, that's my mama. So she's naming all the people in the Spanish club, but I know you can't really see it that well, but there are 13 girls and 1 boy. So she's naming the girl, naming the girl, naming the girl, naming the girl. So he says, well, who's that boy in the back? She says, I have no idea, I didn't know him. He was like, but you know the whole yearbook and everybody else, you don't know him? She says, no. We weren't friends. I have no clue who that is. And this is what I call selective dementia, because she knew him for at least a minute, because that man is my father. So there you have that. She done just blocked him right on out. Because if you say, you've been married? No. You have kids? No. But there he is right there. So there you have that. Love the selective dementia, though. And then this is probably our favorite. This is one of the last things we did, and Tim died in July, and so a few months before that, we had taken Mom to the Martin Luther King Memorial, and it was just like today. It was March, but it was freezing, so she got on her hat and coat. So we're taking all these pictures and having all this fun, and Tim says, well, Mom, get under there. Let's take one more picture. So he's taking, he takes this last picture, and he says, well, Mom, do you think, it looks like Martin Luther King? And she looks up one last time. She says, it looks just like him. I just don't ever remember him being that tall. You know what? Tim was almost 6'3". That boy hit that concrete. I had to peel all 6'3" of him up off that ground. And she was having, so he was like, it was going, so she was having such a great day. If you've ever been to MLK, you go through, it has all his quotes, his most popular quotes, and you read the quotes. She was reading the quotes. She could even say which one was her favorite, and then that. I was like, Lord have mercy. But, I think the key for us is that we are not, laughing at them. We're certainly laughing with them, and she laughs, more than the rest of us. And I think, she's just forgotten all the anxiety and things that she used to have a lot when we were little, and I think that's so important. And so I think humor, really is healing. But I also don't want to leave you without talking about a little bit of hope. And I hope, especially over here, you can really see it's really dark. But I want to point out a couple things. If you are not familiar, how many of you have ever heard of Us Against Alzheimer's? It is what we call ourselves a engaged and enraged group of folks. We do a lot of advocacy on the Hill. That is the Facebook support group. So if you can't get to some of these wonderful support group and other things, you can't get out of the house to do that, that is an online Facebook page. I am one of 4 moderators of that group. We have about 5,000 members. The cool thing about the group is They are not all in the United States. We got some Canadian folks. We have some folks in the UK. And what's cool about that is if you're up at 2 in the morning, you cannot get your loved one to sleep, and you think you're the only one up. You can get on the support group page and say, oh my God, this is the worst day ever. Nobody understands how I feel. Well, in the UK, it's just dinner time. So they all still up, so they can answer. You can just interrupt their dinner and they answer you back. It is the coolest thing. And so I love that. The bottom middle, there's the word Congress and the word raise. How many of you are aware that Congress passed a Caregiver Act, the Family Caregiver Act? A few hands. All right, for those of you who don't know. In January, shockingly, Congress passed something called the Family Caregiver Act, also known as RAISE. If you're interested in it, the R in RAISE stands for recognize, A stands for assist, I stands for include, S stands for support, and E stands for engage. Now, what does that mean? Unfortunately, it means all states have to deal with this individually. So all the RAISE Family Caregiver Act does is it sets up the framework for some additional benefits to be available. So like if you quit your job today to stay home to take care of the guys who are here, you know, your wife or whatever, you're here to take care of your loved one, can you be reimbursed for that? That would be something for the state of Maryland, in which I also live, to decide. So we have to raise our hand and yell and jump up and down and say, hey, we want money. If I quit my job tomorrow, will you please pay me maybe not everything I made, but, you know, something, so that we would have some income. So keep your eye on that RAISE Act, but raise a fuss too, so that, you know, we can get what we need. Because like I said, nationally, there will only be the framework that A, it exists, and B, is going to have a variety of services inside it. But we have to kind of control, or at least have a say in what those things will be about in our state. So, you know, Maryland, Delaware, whatever. How many of you know that there's an Alzheimer stamp? Get some today. If you know anything about fundraising stamps, you know they have a shelf life. It came out in November of 2017, which means we have until 19. So, you know, I know people don't mail a lot of stuff these days, but please encourage your friends, buy some stamps. A fundraiser stamp, the purpose of it is a portion of the proceeds goes to, you know, whatever the stamp is about. So in this case, it goes to NIH for Alzheimer's research. So we need that. Buy some stamps, buy some stamps, buy some stamps. Almost all post offices have them now, and that's really cool. And then that the one on the bottom left, AARP has named me the entertainment director. You know, you can call me whatever you want. They called me that because, you know, when they interviewed me, they were like, man, you have so many activities for your mother. Well, here's the thing. I am not just going to sit here and watch that blank stare and me do nothing. Every single day, I try to engage her in some way because I want to see those bright eyes come alive and that smile. I'm not just going to watch you do this and dwindle away. You're a different person, yes, but you're still my mama, and I still want to engage with you. Even though we can't have a conversation any longer, I truly want, you know, at least some sense that you are still in there. And so that's what they that's what they have named me. And I do work very hard to, you know, keep her as engaged as possible and do as many things with her. So there is a lot of hope, not only about, you know, we still have that, one of the things I didn't tell you about Us Against Alzheimer's is, excuse me, we have had a goal to sort of meet President Obama's, you know, thing to solve the puzzle of Alzheimer's by 2020, and we're not likely to make that, but it might not be all that far off. So I know the drugs have struggled, and Lilly had that failure in the third season of the drug trial, and that was so disappointing, and, you know, they take that kind of stuff personally, so there's a lot of mourning over that failure, but, I mean, I still think there's enough out there for us to be hopeful about. And look at all these fine people you have here and each other, so, you know, get these resources and continue to exchange cards so that we can give each other hope on our lowest days as well. Now, Lon talked this morning about expectations. That's the first time I'd ever seen Lon. We're in the same Facebook group, so that's why we knew each other. We were taking pictures and all that. So, but we never met prior to today. But so it was interesting, his take on expectations, because I have a slightly different one. My motto for this disease is have no expectations. And I think I have that because, you never know how these days are going to go. So if you have all these expectations about how we think things should be, make sure I got time, and it doesn't turn out the way, not do that. Technology is only good if it works. So, and we don't have things the way we want them to be, we just kind of accept it. And that's me and Miss Adams and Mom on Mom's birthday. And like I told her, Mom was cracking all these jokes, so we're laughing hysterically. And you can't plan that. That's just something, that just happens, miraculously. And, you just never know, how it'll play out. Now, I told you Mom got out from her group home not once but twice. So I put the little bracelet thing on, and that worked the first time. But then the second time she got out, I had to, go one more. But so let me tell you the story of how we got her back. So a doctor came. They had protocols at the group home, but a doctor came and left the door unlocked to the, not unlocked, open to the group home. So my mother gets up off the couch and walks out. So she walked 3/4 of a mile, including across a 4-lane highway, before running into a mother and daughter. The mother was about 20, and then her mom. And they see my mom, and they notice that blank stare right away because they're taking care of their mother/grandmother at the house. So they said, my mother's walking so fast, they have to get in the car and drive to get ahead of her and in front of her. So they get out of the car. They said, hi, what's your name? Doris. Doris, do you know where you live? No. Doris, is there somebody we can call for you? No. Okay. So it's hot outside. They put her in the back of their car. They give her some water and a cookie, meaning she ain't never going to get out that car again. So she's enjoying her cookie. So they're still asking her questions, none of which she can answer. When she gets to cookie number 2, they say her head's back on the headrest, and all of a sudden, she says, Loretta. My mother has not said my name in 4 years. So the lady says, oh, who's Loretta? She says, I don't know. So the daughter types in her phone, Googles Loretta in Maryland, and up pops that Washington Post article. People are like, oh my God, that's her. That's her right there. So my whole name's in there, Loretta Woodward Veney. So she gets on Facebook. She types in Loretta Woodward Veney. I come up. She sends me a message on Facebook. Hey, my name is Tiffany. I live in Fort Washington. I think I got your mama. What? What do you mean you got my mama? Now, I had missed the text from, I always have my phone, always. But this day, I was in my RV. We were campers. We were actually camping when Tim died. And so I promised him I'd keep going. So I'm in my RV packing for this trip. And I missed the thing from the group home, and then, of course, I missed Tiffany's, and I was like, oh, my God, where'd you find my mama? Yeah. So, I think you just can't make this stuff up. I don't know how my mother, remembers my name after 4 years, and Tiffany finds me. Who knew you could get your mama back on Facebook? You just, you just can't make this stuff up. So, that's why my thing is have no expectations. Then you're not, oh, my God, such surprising. And, she was none aware. That's her after we got her back. And I said, you went on an adventure. And she said, I did. Did I have fun? I don't know, sweetie. You were the only one there. Who would know? It's just crazy. And then to that last picture, and this is the last thing I have. And that, quite the thing. That was in my little dream car I told you about. And in the book, my mom talks about how if you don't pay something off, you don't really own it. And so I had paid off my car, so we're going to go and have ice cream, her favorite meal, to celebrate. And when I get out the car, I notice right away she is not following me. Thinking, wow, that's so weird. Don't you want ice cream? So I come over and said, Mom, come on, we're having ice cream. Okay, so she takes a couple of steps. I'm not sure why I took that picture. But, she doesn't get far, then she stops again. She reaches down to the bottom of her skirt. She pulls the skirt up all the way over her head. I'm like, oh, my God. And you remember when you were little, your parents used to always say, always wear clean underwear because you never know if you're going to get hit by a car. So at least when she shows everything, it's those cute little Depends with the little blue flowers on. So when she's showing all her stuff, at least she look good. So I'm just praying that nobody else is watching this anywhere. So I'm looking around. I don't see anybody. All of a sudden, I see this woman running at me with her arms out. So, okay, I play along. I'm going to run too. So we get in the middle, we hug like we'd have known each other, forever. So she says, honey, I'm right there with you. Last week, my husband dropped his pants in Walgreens. And then we, Yes, Lord. See, you just think you're alone, but you're not. So, you think you're the only one that have these kind of challenges, but everybody else has it too. And so I felt so good, like, oh my God, really, it just confirms we are not alone. And no matter how significant the challenges are, somebody else has been there. So we have to do all the things we heard today, ask for help when we need it, and, take all the resources that are out there, because there are people who care about us and, want to help us. So here's my favorite saying. Starting today, I need to forget what's gone. I need to appreciate what still remains. And I absolutely look forward to what is coming next. And that was the PBS special we were in about a year ago, and the director had come to our house. He spent about 12 hours with us from Richmond. And when he found out 6 weeks later that Tim had died, he asked could they dedicate the film to him, which they did, and I really appreciated that. There was us and like 12 other families, but it was just the coolest thing. Tim's actually in it for like a 10-second clip, but you could see the love between the two of them, and I absolutely appreciated that. And I think when you think about our journey and where each of us are, whether we do this professionally or whether these are our family members and or neighbors that we care for, we don't have any idea how this disease will play out. But I think if we continue to hang on to each other and support each other and come out to things like this where you can see smiling faces next to you and have lunch and coffee and know that we are all in this fight together, is a good thing. So I hope that you'll find that there have been at least one or two things that you can take away and use and sort of make this journey a little less painful. But I hope that you at least felt it was worth to stay to the end of the day with me. So thank you so much for doing that. Got a picture too. Look at that.